Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's State of Affordable Housing in South Carolina. As the largest public housing authority in the state and the largest single provider of affordable housing, we are super excited to come to you today to speak to affordable housing solutions in South Carolina. And we're honored, frankly, that so many of you have decided to join us for today's address. As elected officials, community leaders, and candidates, you are uniquely positioned to help provide solutions to the growing concerns around access to available and affordable housing options for the citizens in South Carolina. Before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge our Board of Commissioners and thank them for their unwavering support of our organization and the work that we do. Chairman Ernest Cromartie III, Vice Chairman James Chatfield, Commissioner George Green, Commissioner Kevin Warner, Commissioner Kamaria Mosley, Commissioner Karen Jenkins, and also Commissioner Darrell Jackson Jr. We're super appreciative for, again, the unwavering support. Additionally, I want to publicly thank our dynamic team that consistently puts in the extra mile to help Columbia Housing meet its goals. Thank you for all that you do. Now, a little about your presenters today. I am Yvonda A, CEO of Columbia Housing. I joined the team at Columbia Housing in the summer of 2019 after leading the Housing Authority in Lafayette, Louisiana, successfully shepherding, if you will, that agency out of HUD receivership status and HUD control to one that is now independent and financially sound. Before that, I had stints in Toledo, Ohio, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and where I actually began my journey in the affordable housing industry in Aiken, South Carolina. I have more than 25 years of experience in the affordable housing industry. Also presenting is Mark Thiele, who is the CEO of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, more commonly known as NAHRO. NAHRO is the oldest and largest affordable housing trade association in the country. Its 26,000 members provide the most units and serve the most individuals of any other housing organization in the country. It is, again, the leading national trade organization that advocates on behalf of housing authorities across the country. So we are excited to have CEO Mark Thiele to join us for today's important address. Some of the information presented in today's affordable housing address was researched, penned, and published by the following: the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the Palmetto State Housing Study of 2023, the Darla Moore School of Business at the University of South Carolina, SC Housing, Appleseed Legal Justice Center, South Carolina Legislature, and the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Today, we will cover the following: the affordable housing crisis in South Carolina, affordable and available housing in South Carolina, and we'll talk a little bit about how we actually got to the affordable housing crisis. We'll talk about a national perspective, as well as we'll address South Carolina's shortage of affordable housing and workforce housing, and what should we do, and what role you all can play. Let's get started. The affordable housing crisis can be summed up by these issues: widespread shortage of affordable housing units, low wages, and escalating rental costs nationwide. It is estimated that 83,000 more housing units are needed in South Carolina alone to address the shortage of affordable housing and workforce housing. When we're not building new units, the problem simply cannot get better. One of the drivers of the need for more housing is population growth. South Carolina has experienced significant population growth throughout the previous decade that has far outpaced the national average. There are a lot of reasons for it, but the biggest is migration from other states, creating a strong housing demand for families. The number of households in South Carolina increased by 16% over a recent 10-year period compared to the 11% for the United States. More recently, in 2023, South Carolina saw a population increase of at least 90,000 people over the previous year. Our population in South Carolina is growing at faster rates than the national average. In addition to population growth, South Carolina is also experiencing a demographic shift in which the population is significantly aging. That means that the housing industry in South Carolina will also have to do more to adjust to meet the needs of an aging population. So I'm going to take a shameless plug at this time to speak to the fact that Columbia Housing currently has over $100 million in new construction underway for seniors and families. In fact, approximately 60% of the 435 units that we'll realize by the end of this year for our seniors, the aging population. Our designs are thoughtful, allowing seniors to truly age in place. We made the doors wider. Each of the units will have washer and dryers so that the seniors aren't required to go up and down stairs to do laundry. Showers are real walk-in showers and not step up. And those are just some of the features we are, again, most proud of. The truth of the matter is the strong population growth that South Carolina has experienced throughout the 21st century has been accompanied by a more recent long period of underbuilding that began in 2008 and has taken place across the United States following the housing crisis of 2009 and the Great Recession. The housing crisis hit hard. As of March 2008, an estimated 12 million borrowers had negative equity in their homes. The common way we say that is how they are upside down in their loans. By 2010, 23% of all U.S. homes were worth less than the mortgage loan. Before Columbia Housing actually started building the $100 million in new construction underway currently, Columbia Housing hadn't built in quite some time, and I think that's important to note. The period of underbuilding led to the nationwide shortage in housing inventory that extends to most U.S. regions, including South Carolina. To bring it all together, we continue to experience population growth while the housing crisis was also happening, which slowed housing development. You had people moving to our great state and grappling with finding adequate housing. Another thing to consider is that South Carolina's population is highly concentrated, with approximately 90% of the state's population located in just 50% of the state's 46 counties. It's 75% rural, and developing in rural areas isn't always attractive or primed for new builds. Data indicates that the demand for new housing will continue to be concentrated in the coastal regions of South Carolina, along with the upstate, the Midlands, and the outskirts of Charlotte metropolitan area, for instance, York and Lancaster counties. By contrast, that by no means indicates that there are no housing needs in South Carolina's rural areas. The housing needs of South Carolinians in rural counties will likely center around home remodeling and maintenance with less demand for new housing. So let's discuss just how that breaks down in some of the counties. In Greenville County, there is a need for approximately 7,500 affordable housing units. And key issues include a growing job market and population increases that has pushed up housing costs, making affordability a pressing issue. For instance, when BMW came in and all of those second-tier automotive businesses that followed, incomes went up, which contributed to the increase in housing costs. Then there's Lexington County. Reports reflect a need of 4,500 affordable housing units. And some of the key issues there include rapid suburban growth and increasing housing prices that outpaced income growth, leading to a significant need for affordable rental and ownership options. The county's proximity to the Columbia metropolitan area contributes to the rising housing costs. And frankly, depending on where you go on a Friday night, you can't find parking anywhere. Then there is Horry County. There is a need of approximately 5,000 affordable units. And key issues include tourism. Tourism has driven the economy with a high demand for rental properties, leading to affordability issues for residents. And their particular Myrtle Beach, it continues to be the number one summer travel destination in the country. Spartanburg reflects a need of approximately 4,500 units. And some of the key issues there include economic growth and low wages for many workers, contributing to the need for affordable housing options. Charleston County, there is a need for approximately 10,000 affordable housing units. Key issues include high rent costs and a significant number of cost burden renters due to the region's rapid growth population and high demand for housing. Charleston County isn't a destination for low income earners, if you will, where the average rent is $1,700 per month, which is 14% higher than the national average. And the homes for sale range anywhere from over 300,000 to a little over $1 million. And then there's Richland County. There is approximately a need for 6,000 affordable units. And some of the key issues here include rising rental prices and income disparities that have contributed to the affordable housing deficit. Now, I would say we can also expect more of a demand for affordable housing in the next 5 years, particularly because of Scout Motors, which we're excited about. Then there's Beaufort County. There is approximately an affordable housing deficit of 3,500 units. Key issues include high property values and a growing population. Aiken County, 3,000, a deficit of 3,000 units. And some of the key issues there include economic challenges and moderate wages. All of those things, of course, have led to the need for more affordable rental options. Also, York County, approximately 3,000 affordable housing units are needed. Key issues include rapid suburban growth and increasing property prices. Lancaster County, mentioned earlier, there's a deficit of about 2,500 affordable housing units. And some of the key issues include economic constraints and rising rental prices. And lastly, Anderson County, there is approximately 2,000 affordable housing units needed there. And some of the key issues include limited affordable housing supply relative to the demand due to the economic and demographic changes there. We have a very interesting state. And again, before I go further, I do want to mention that a lot of the data that is being discussed today will in fact be made available to you following the conclusion of this presentation. Again, we have a very interesting state from the mountains to the beaches. And it is again estimated that 83,000 more housing units are needed in South Carolina to address the shortage of affordable housing and workforce housing. The combination of strong housing demand coupled with relatively low levels of housing inventory have led to an imbalanced housing market in South Carolina, which created affordability challenges for many South Carolinians. Now let's talk about what it means to be cost burdened. Many of South Carolina's low-income citizens are cost burdened. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, specifically defines a cost burdened household as one that pays more than 30% of its income for housing. Let's consider what this means for low-income earners. The reality is that they are less likely to realize the American dream simply because they can't afford to. When examining the cost burden of South Carolina households by income level and family structure, the need for a greater supply of workforce housing becomes clear. While while housing affordability is nearly a universal challenge for low income households, it's also a significant strain on the working class families. Another shameless plug, one of the new construction communities that I referenced earlier, Oaks at St. Anna's Park. It also includes, in addition to seniors and families, we have workforce housing. We are super elated to share that we've already housed teachers, medical professionals, FedEx workers, state government workers, and more. So being part of the solution is extremely important to us. And that speaks to some of our advocacy work. Policies directed at improving housing affordability should also include affordable and attainable housing programs and new inventory for middle income families. Individuals in these households are often employed as teachers, as I just mentioned, first responders, and again, healthcare support workers. Workforce housing renters are generally understood to be renters of affordable housing for households with earned household incomes that exceed $35,000, but is insufficient to secure quality housing in reasonable proximity to where they work. By this measure, approximately 50% of renting households and 25% of households with a mortgage are housing cost burden in South Carolina. It's much worse, obviously, for other groups. Approximately 90% of South Carolina's lower income households, defined as those earning less than $35,000 annually, are estimated to be housing cost burden. However, in South Carolina, there is also a significant population base of middle income households that also face affordability challenges. A study commissioned by the South Carolina legislature estimates that more than 1/3 of households earning between $35,000 and $75,000 annually are housing cost burdened by traditional measure. The cost burden of this segment of the population is especially high in coastal South Carolina. When examining the cost burden of South Carolina households by income level and family structure, the need for a greater supply of workforce housing becomes clear. It's also clear that if we don't do something intentional, the affordable housing shortage will continue to grow and more people will be adversely affected. While long-term solutions are necessary to remedy the persistent shortage of affordable housing, short-term assistance is critical for ensuring low-income renters remain housed. When we look at low-income renters, the private market hasn't and will not serve those renters because the cost of providing affordable housing outweighs what the low-income renters can pay. Some of you may be wondering why more developers aren't stepping up to actually build more affordable housing. And there are realistically several impediments to that. There's no incentive to build. State and local governments have an important role to play through zoning reform, housing support, funding, and other financial efforts. But we must also work with our federal contacts. With the supply of affordable and available rental homes worsening, Congress must recognize the urgent need for expanding our supply of affordable rental housing and preserving the supply that already exists. HUD has reported, last I read, a $90 billion deficit in deferred maintenance needs across the country. We are included in that number, and that's across the country for housing authorities. This year, we celebrated our 90th anniversary. And as you would imagine, we have some aged inventory. We have, however, been diligent and intentional about forging public-private partnerships to continue providing affordable housing solutions for families in Columbia. But the needs extend, obviously, beyond South Carolina. And to further discuss a national perspective of the affordable housing picture in this country, please welcome Mark Thiele, an affordable housing powerhouse in his own right, to the conversation. Mark.
Oh, wow. Powerhouse. That is far too kind. Yvonda, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about or expand a little bit on what you've already talked about so eloquently at this groundbreaking forum. First of all, if I may thank all of you for everything that you do for your communities, the sacrifice that you make and your families make in your commitment to public service is not unnoticed by us at NAHRO and is deeply appreciated, certainly by us and by the residents, the constituents that you serve. A little bit about NAHRO, National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. We're really three things. The oldest, as Yvonda mentioned, formed in 1933. The largest, we're both a trade and an individual member association, so over 26,000 agencies, about 2,500 agencies, and the balance are individuals. Most importantly, widest reaching, to the crisis that Yvonda described so eloquently. Our members currently serve 3 million units, 8 million individuals, and we call ourselves housers because that's what we do and who we are. But when we do that houser math, the 3 million and 8 million, it means that we serve children, we serve families, we serve the future, as do you, and that's tremendously important. Last little bit about the kind of things that NAHRO does. It's the 5 things that we call our pillars. We advocate, obviously to influence good policy and to try to change minds when negative policy is being proposed. We inform HUD what our members think and inform our members what's going on at the federal level. We do a ton of professional development all across the country. We celebrate our joint victories as we accomplish so many things against the long odds that Yvonda described so well. And most importantly, we connect in moments at our events, but in moments like these. And I hope that you'll take the opportunity to reach out to us. Happy to provide this presentation, but particularly the links that you'll see to the points that Yvonda raised so well. We just ended the most vigorous advocacy campaign in our history, and it really was around 6 key points, because the challenge that Yvonda described in South Carolina is a national challenge. There is a deep shortage of housing, depending on whose data you're looking at, between 4, but we think closer to 7 million units. And the programs to affect the extremely low income, the very low income, are not funded as well as they need to be for the success of these families and their children. So what we advocated for and what is the national need is to fully fund our fiscal year 25 HUD programs. The Senate bill is a better bill than the House bill. We'll see as we move through what Congress is willing to do. Fully fund voucher effectiveness. The voucher is an incredible tool. It just celebrated its 50th anniversary. It allows for individual choice when units are available. There are obviously national source of income discrimination issues that need to be addressed. The housing gap will only grow if we don't support and preserve public housing. So preservation is important because you can actually lose units, and it can get worse than it is right now. Clearly, we need to invest in community development and housing supply and think broadly and creatively and locally. As again, Yvonne has described very well, the different strategies that might apply to different communities. And we advocate for that flexibility on behalf of our members. We clearly need to address the increases in the intolerable homelessness that we have across the country. And we've heard that over and over again. I travel all across the country. Used to be that mayors would welcome us, tell us to have a good time, and spend money in community X, Y, and Z. And now they thank us deeply from the bottom of their hearts for the work that housers are doing. They advocate strongly for us. They understand the needs, our national needs, that there is a shortage of units nationally, that income disparities are a challenge throughout. It's the unaffordability of housing is a broad challenge that needs to be addressed, in a everything plus a manner, as creatively to the local expertise that you have, right, in your particular communities, and we value that, but clearly broadly with as many tools as can be brought to bear. And that's why we also advocate for the expansion of the housing tax credits. I mentioned at the beginning of this slide that this was unprecedented. We basically tripled what we'd sent. And it goes to the urgency that housers feel, that we were able to have letters sent from every state and reach over 78 or 77.6% of Congress in those 104,000 letters in the balance to the executive. So these are really broad challenges. I was pleased that South Carolina represented so very well related to that. So shout out again to you, Yvonda, relative to what you've built there, to make sure that folks feel invested. And it's not just housing. Although obviously housing is critical to us, for families to be successfully homed, for community building to be successful, folks need to think about criminal justice, about self-sufficiency, about challenges in education. I think one of the things that we've sort of done collectively is acted like COVID never existed, and of course it will impact our families and our children for years to come, and the impacts are things that we will continue to see. But certainly education and the disruption in education impacted our most vulnerable families and their children, and we're looking for additional ways to actionably deal with that access to resources and ongoing work with social determinants of health. I do want to shout out a couple. We were able to give Yvonda and the team there awards relative to their blood drives and Housers for Health. And it goes to the fact that, I think folks tend to think of Housers as very specifically in a Hauser lane, what we used to call bricks and sticks. And it's absolutely true that Housers nationally are thinking far more broadly than that. Are thinking about everything that goes into that palette that would help to lift that family up, to increase the potential for success for that family and those children. So this is what I was referring to. I could go on for days relative to our legislative and regulatory agenda, our presidential transition document, and the 360 document. But rather than doing that, what I'll do is share with you that access to it, so that at your convenience, you can take a look And if you have questions, our staff, I myself am always excited to be available to help, to direct you, to provide you with tools related to this, because I know you've got an awful lot on your plates, and we try to make it, boil it down and make it as simple, as we possibly can for you. This moment, of course, nationally, everyone stood down for the election. We just have 2 weeks left. But I think what you'll see is more focus. We're pleased to hear the candidates talking more about affordable housing and all of the additional issues that tie into that is not traditional for us, even though this housing crisis has been years and years in the making and so deeply affects Americans broadly, and folks are talking about it constantly, right? That's, as I said earlier, what I hear everywhere. Gratitude, but more than gratitude, need, right? And what I continue to hope is that amongst the many things that are on our collective radar, that we can figure out ways to devote more energy to this really fundamental American challenge of creating a situation where everyone across the country, and certainly across South Carolina, feels it at home, and has the supports they need to be successful. So if I may kind of end with a little bit of a vision. It's been described what folks are doing, but I think it's useful to see it. Every one of these next images is a successful project or development across the country that affordable housing are doing, just like Yvonda and the team are doing in South Carolina. And we're tremendously proud of the work that folks are doing. I don't think folks see it enough. And sometimes you have to see it to believe it. So I appreciate you seeing the future with me. I'm so proud of the opportunity to share with you for a minute. I encourage you to connect. We'll make sure you have my contact information directly. And I encourage you to reach out to Yvonda's incredible team there for local expertise. We're so proud of everything she's done. She is the 2024 Advocate of the Year. And it's been a real delight to be part of this presentation. Of course, I'll be here throughout. Thank you, Yvonda.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you for sharing what the future of affordable housing looks like. I will say that as Mark mentioned earlier, affordable housing is certainly top of mind. We were, those of us in the affordable housing industry, excited to here, I believe there may have been 2 or 3 questions on affordable housing posed to the presidential candidates during their debate. And that was probably the first time that we've heard that for presidential candidates. So it was refreshing and obviously, again, top of mind. So in conclusion, we want to thank you all for attending today's State of Affordable Housing in South Carolina, hosted by Columbia Housing. We are making progress and we're moving in the right direction. We need each of you all to do that and continue to do it as some of you elected officials or prospective elected officials. Our goal today was really to equip you with information specific to affordable housing in our state. And as legislation and policies are introduced, we want to challenge you to consider supporting efforts that will help end the affordable housing crisis in the state of South Carolina. The South Carolina legislature has the power, authority, and means to fund more affordable housing efforts. Columbia Housing stands ready to work with each of you. As I mentioned previously, we will post this presentation on our YouTube this afternoon, and we'll send the link to all original invitees and those who've registered for today's session. Thank you again for joining us. Have a safe and productive rest of your day.